Okay.
Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Here.
Mr. Lunder,
Here.
Mrs. Thomas, here, Mrs. Moore, here, Mr. Shaboo,
Here.
Mr. Morris,
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here. Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of council, April 12th, 2022. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Motion for approval.
Motion is made by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mr. Bittner. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mrs. Thomas. Aye. Mrs. Morse. Aye. Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morse.
Aye.
Sorry,
That's okay.
Mr. Johnson.
Abstain. Correspondence. Clerk, is there any correspondence tonight? Does any member of council have correspondence tonight?
I
Mr. Shaboo.
I have a lengthy email from Heather McAllister at 6008 Thunderbird Drive. I am reaching out to you as a concerned homeowner on behalf of myself and my parents. I have lived at 6008 Thunderbird Drive for 8 years, and my parents, Bill and Chris Holmes, live at 7430 Goldenrod Drive and have for over 40 years. I lived in Mentor Lake most of my life, either with my parents growing up or with my family of four now. I have major concerns rezoning these parcels into residential. I know a resident of Cedarwood stood up at a council meeting a few weeks ago stating that it does not really affect someone living on Thunderbird, and he is incorrect. It may not affect Cedarwood, Furwood, Maplewood. However, it would greatly affect Thunderbird as it does Salida. Thunderbird gets the Salida traffic as they get Thunderbird's traffic. Salida and Thunderbird are easy access to get to Andrews from and to Lakeshore. Within the last few years, Thunderbird has seen a much larger amount of traffic, and most of them driving at a high rate of speed. But that is another topic. Allowing multifamily units, whether it be apartments, townhouses, condos, will only increase that traffic considerably as people want to avoid the traffic light on both Reynolds and Campbell. They come off Lakeshore to Maplewood, only the first quarter of it, turn around Thunderbird and only have a few stop signs to get to Salida and vice versa while heading up Salida to Thunderbird to the quarter part of Maplewood and Lakeshore. So yes, it does affect us as far as having the complexes in our backyard. It does affect it and would be a longer route to get to Salida. People will generally take this back way instead of going up Lakeshore to the light to turn on Andrews. It is much more congested up that way, and then you have to wait to turn onto Andrews, which is very congested. That is another point as to why we do not need more complexes than on Andrews. More people, way more congestion up from Fern to Lakeshore in our little shopping district. Another major concern of mine is that we do not have the police or rescue force to handle so many more additional bodies in our city. In my opinion, we are very short-staffed in these areas. We have only a limited amount of full-time patrol officers now with what we have. By creating multi-person units, we will need more full-time officers or the services needed by our current residents will not be met. If we zone these areas as residential, my understanding is in the future, we are opening the potential of them becoming low-income housing in Section 8. Statistics show that with this type of housing, we have a greater chance of bringing crime in our little community. Right now, we do not have crime already, but residents still feel a sense of some safety. If we bring in more opportunity, we will lose our sense of safety, which is one of the reasons why we bought here and not in Meadow. I already know that if it passes to approve, that if it is passed to approve these locations as residential, I will be looking into options in other cities to move my family to. I did not move here to be overcrowded and live in a mini Cleveland Painesville area where you are concerned with not feeling comfortable leaving the front door open or being in your yard. I am not against businesses being open, even the Dollar General, because that is what these areas are zoned for currently. And those two will bring in revenue to our city. There's not much that can be done if a business wants to build in our city and they meet the zoning requirements, and I understand that. This does not make me feel unsafe in our community as multifamily units do. We have a lot of multifamily housing on Andrews as is and on Sharon Drive. Looking at these units, they have gone downhill from 20 years ago and have drawn in some shady characters. They all looked great and beautiful 20 years ago, but now they are no longer kept, and some are starting to become an eyesore. Everyone knows that the one on the side of Giant Eagle behind the ale house is not an upstanding complex. I'm sure big promises were made when that one was built too, but now it is known for nothing but trouble. This is where these developments will be in another 10 years as well. Is there also not a reason why the city does not go in and clean the judge's property where the former Jaegers was and attach that onto her tax bill as a lien? If it were a resident, this would have been done. She has boats sitting there still, and one is without a trailer laying on its side. This makes our city look like trash. Just because she is or was a judge is no excuse why she should not be penalized with this with liens tacked on. If a boat without a trailer was on its side in the residence yard, after warnings, it would be removed by our city and we would be penalized. Is this because she is or was a judge? This property has always been an eyesore. In a nutshell, my husband and myself and my mother and father are concerned with the violence these complexes could bring to our city with them. And for my husband and myself, the extra unneeded traffic on Thunder. We do not have the police force that would be able to handle this amount of bodies within our city. Our police force does an excellent job now, but there is absolutely no way in ER forces as it stands to take care of us, our city and its residents like they do now if we add more multi-purpose units to our city. These units will create, if not now, then eventually more crimes within our city. Neither my family nor my parents verbally expressed this in council meetings as we are not comfortable standing up in front of others and talking. And I also personally am not confident with how council and how it works to do it. So we are expressing our concerns via email. Unlike what Mr. Paul Moore spews on Facebook on the community page, it is not that people do not care. It is that some are not comfortable addressing crowds or being in crowds or they do not understand how council works to be comfortable expressing their opinions in fear of coming across as feeling inadequate. But his rudeness is a whole other story, and we are very grateful that he is not the voice of our area. Thank you, Mr. Shaboo, for your time, thoughtfully, Heather and Sean McCollister, 6008 Thunderbird, Bill and Chris Holmes, 7430 Golden Rock Drive.
Thank you. Is there any additional correspondence tonight?
In light of the conversation of a lot of the recent meetings, there's been a lot of talk about subsidized housing and Section 8 housing in the city. So I took it upon myself to correspond and reach out to Lake Metropolitan Housing, which is the agency that is in charge of that program. I asked them specifically for a number of homes in Monterey Lake, single family, multifamily, apartments, anything like that, that participates in their program. Section 8 is now called the Housing Voucher Program, so they get a voucher for a house only, not an apartment. There are 6 subsidized houses in Monterey Lake. I also wanted to confirm with the apartment complexes if they did or didn't take it, so I called around to them and spoke to all the managers, and all of them told me that they do not accept Section 8 or other type of subsidies in this area. So there are 6 houses in Monterey Lake that are being held. Then I received some correspondence from Miss Heather McCollister as well on Saturday, April 23rd. It's another lengthy email, but I'd like to read it. Good morning. I'm writing you in regards to Councilperson Paul Morris. I'm honestly not sure how council works and who to address issues concerns to, but you are on council. You are the council person at large for my ward, so I thought I would start with you. I'm Heather McCollister at 6008 Thunderbird Drive. Luckily, Mr. Morris does not represent my ward. I was wondering if someone could address his rudeness over this post on Facebook on the Community of Monterey Lake page as a representative of our city. In several posts in relation to his position, not personal posts, he has been extremely rude. The last being approximately 14 hours ago to what I can tell is directed to a person who he is in fact a representative of their ward. There is a way to address people or express things. However, I feel that he goes way too far. There's no reason to be rude and harsh as a council person. Saying people do not care about their city is in itself uncalled for, as some people are unable to attend meetings for several and various reasons, which could include inability to physically get there, anxiety issues, shyness, feeling that they will be degraded for speaking their minds, like Paul Morris comes across as the type of person who would do this. And some citizens may still have COVID fears, as a lot of our residents are older. A lot of people do not understand how the government works either, and feel that their voice would not matter, or they would not be able to express themselves properly since they are not familiar with how it all works. Coming on Facebook and being snarky or telling someone that I saw on your profile that you do not even live in our community anymore. You live in Cleveland, so why do you care what goes on in our city? Are you hoping to move back to MOL? As a response to being called out for a rude post is not right. After the person who I have no clue who he is, but looking, I do see he lives on Fern and in Monterey Lake, responded that he has been here for over a decade and he is sorry for not updating his Facebook in a timely manner for Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris then comments, I would have thought that over a decade would have been plenty of time to correct your profile. I guess you aren't the type of person who rushes into anything. These comments, along with others he has made on this page, is not how a council person should be acting. This is very immature and appears as if he is just looking to rile people up. His posts and responses are what hold people back from expressing concerns. As a representative of our city, he should do better. If I reply to my customers, which in turn are his residents, in the way that he does and has, I would be reprimanded. This is not how you bring a community together, nor is it how you get your residents to want to attend meetings or express concerns. This particular person he is commenting with appears to be part of his ward. This is how you reply and treat someone that you are supposed to be standing up for and representing on your behalf. Someone should let Mr. Morris know that what is on Facebook is not always true. such as the locations that people put in their profiles. That this day and age, people tend to not want their locations out there for the public to see. At one point, I lived in Alaska. Is it true? No. I have lived in Mount Arna Lake, whether growing up or now with my family for over 30 years, as has my husband. He has also been very confrontational on another post too about the complex proposed for the Old Yagers location, and made his post appear that not only the mayor, but the council have tried to be deceitful. This does not look good at all and only causes alarm and uncertainty within our community. There is a way to announce upcoming council meetings and agendas when you are a representative of the city, and he is not doing it correctly, nor as a representative of our city should be. I understand freedom of speech, and he has his own personal page. But when you come on a page meant for the community and are rude, you are now acting as a person on a council for the city and a representative of the city. Either he needs to learn how to properly address items on social media, or he should refrain from posting anything other than his own personal page. Calling people and council out and being flat out rude is unacceptable for a council person to do. Everyone working for a company knows that you are always a reflection of your company. His posts and responses come off as being intimidating, and that is not right. Thank you for reading this thoughtfully. Heather McCollister, 6000 East Thunderbird Drive.
Any additional correspondence tonight? Hearing none, we will go on to administrative and department head reports. Mayor and Safety Director, Mr. Eva. Good
Good
evening.
evening, Mr. Johnson, members of council, public here this evening. I'd like to start out with swearing in our two new full-time officers. Randy. Come up. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Brandon Posey, solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Ohio, that I will in all respects observe the provisions of the charter and ordinances of the city of Mount Arna Lake, and will faithfully discharge my duties as a full-time patrol officer for the Mount Arna Lake Police Department. Congratulations.
Good, I'm glad he caught it. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Congratulations. Come on. Come on, Jake. Get up. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Neil Tyrell,
I, Neil Tyrell,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Ohio,
and the state of Ohio,
that I will in all respects
that I will in all respects
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the charter
of the charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the city of Mount Arna Lake,
of the city of Mount Lake,
and will faithfully discharge my duties
and will faithfully discharge my duties
as a full-time patrol officer
as a full-time patrol
for
officer
the Mount Lake Police Department.
for the Mount Lake Police Department.
Congratulations.
Change it up a little. Watch your kids.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Families are welcome to leave at this time. Yes.
Go put my head up.
I want to mention tonight to part-time officer Dave Lombardo, retired from our police department on April 23rd. Officer Lombardo worked in our police department for over 27 years. I want to wish Dave and his family the best going forward. Also, at the appropriate time, I'd like to schedule a community development committee meeting for Monday, May 9th, if that works. The purpose of the meeting would be, I'd like to have the Summers Group come in with their site plan and all of their information and go over the proposal for the corner of Andrews and Lakeshore. By scheduling this meeting, I like residents to come in, question and answers. They will be able to answer and we'll be able to have an open forum for the whole site plan and what they plan on doing. So again, community development committee meeting, if possible, Monday, May 9th. That concludes our report.
Why don't we make it a committee of the whole meeting? That way all council will be there. Let's see, Law Director, Mr. Lyons.
Good evening, Mr. President. No report.
Fire Chief, Mr. Pacheco, good evening.
Good evening. On April 9th, the fire department held our annual Easter egg hunt. Despite the cold weather, there was a great turnout. I would like to thank the firefighters and their family members who came out to help make this a successful event. On tonight's agenda, ordinance 2022-0-04 is on third reading. I would like to share some facts related to fireworks that supports the passage of this ordinance. The Consumer Product Safety Commission reported that there was a 50% increase in deaths and injuries from fireworks-related incidents in 2020. At least 18 people died, and about 15,600 people were treated in hospital emergency departments for fireworks injuries in 2020. Firecrackers were the biggest source of ER-treated fireworks injuries, followed by sparklers. Burns were the most common fireworks injury at 44%. The parts of the body most often injured were hands and fingers at 30%, face and ears at 22%, and eye injuries at 15%. In 2021, Columbus Blue Jackets goalkeeper died from an errant firework that was ignited nearby and struck him in the chest. According to the NFPA, fireworks were the cause of 2,200 structure fires, 900 vehicle fires, and 32,600 outside brush, grass, and forest fires in 2021. Although it has been quite some time since we have had a fireworks-related injury, it has happened in our city. And I believe this ordinance is the best way to keep our community safe. I would like to thank the ordinance committee and all of council for their support of this ordinance. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the administrative director, or for the mayor or the administration?
Yes, I have a couple questions for the fire chief. Chief, some time ago, I talked to Battalion Chief Tom Kaninsky about a helmet that used to be in the front closet at the station. It was a bronze helmet given to Chief Carl Weston upon his retirement. He said that helmet is missing in action. You know what happened to it?
I have no clue. I can look for it and get back with you, but as of right now, I thought it was still in that front closet.
He said he looked all over the station for it. The reason I ask is because there is a small group of us that meet at the library developing the history of Mineral Lake. And we've talked to the library about developing the display case of stuff from Mineral Lake's history. And I would have liked to have borrowed that to put in there for a while. So if you could take a look around at it.
Yeah, I'll check the annex and upstairs in the attic and see if we can't locate it.
The other question I've got for you, Chief, is do the guys have to learn the streets anymore? I know when Mr. Bittner and Mr. Lunder and I both, all three got on the department, we had to learn the streets. And the reason I ask is I've witnessed on more than one occasion, our emergency vehicles taking a long way around to get to a scene. On one of the most recent ones that I actually documented the time and date was back in October 2nd, about 1 o'clock last year. The call was on 5958 Lake Street. And the car showed up like several minutes before the squad. The squad came in off of Salida. Now, the thing that makes me curious is I know that they both came down Holly. Both turned north on Beach. The squad took off down towards Salida and then cut westbound on Salida to get to Lake Street. I can understand that if they weren't sure where that address was. But the car knew exactly where to go. So to me, it indicates that too many times they're relying on GPS devices to get to a scene. Is that the case, or do they have to learn to see?
They still need, part of the squad certification is the maps test and the addresses. So
Okay.
that is, we do have some newer guys that might not have taken the most direct route, or they might have just made a mistake. But yes, to answer your question, the map test and the address test is still part of the squad certification.
I hope it improves because quite honestly, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to staff the station full time, to reduce response time, to see that the vehicles go weird directions to get to a call. It's disheartening. And the last question I have for you, do the guys still do truck checks?
They do.
Okay, at the Southland Fire, I understand there was a delay in getting the hydrant hooked up because there was an adapter missing out of the hydrant pad. And you're at a disadvantage because three of us up here were on that department. We know what the hydrant pack is and what the procedure should be. Was there a hydrant pack, an adapter missing that day?
The hydrant that you're talking about was a 2.5-inch tube barrel,
Yes, the Kennedy.
which are few and far between in our city. So at that particular fire, the engine operator did have to go back to the truck and grab an adapter for that, which did give a slight delay on that. But that hydrant was also completely buried in snow that we had to dig out before we could even do that. So, but that has been corrected.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for the administration? None. We'll move on to board, committee, and commission reports. First up, Board of Zoning Appeals, Monday, April 18th.
BZA met on 4/18 at 6 p.m. Purpose of the meeting was a variance for 5687 Beach Drive. In attendance was Ray Gaelic, myself, Kevin Bittner, Mayor Eva, Mike Sweeney, and Brandon Towns. Also, the homeowner, Anthony Muir, was there with his wife and son. The variance for at 5687 Beach Drive for an addition to the home, all specifications were made and the variance was approved. The meeting ended at 6:08.
Zoning Committee, Wednesday, April 20th.
Started at 7 PM. The purpose was to review 1255 Lakefront Land Unit Development District. In attendance was myself, Jim Lunder, Paul Morris, Michelle Moore, Kevin Bittner, Dave Eva, and 22 residents. Many residents, as well as city officials, were in attendance and a lively discussion ensued. Some of the residents used this opportunity to voice their concern. The committee will review these comments and suggestions. We will endeavor to incorporate some of them into our ordinance. Residents were encouraged to email me with any further suggestions they may have. The committee adjourned at 8:50 PM.
Any other board commissions that we don't have listed? Okay. Moving on, open to the public to speak. If you'd like to speak, please come to the lectern, state your name and address for the record. Hearing none, we will move on to legislation before council. Resolution number 2022-R-11. If you could please read it by its title.
Resolution number 2022-R-11, a resolution designating certain bank institute to be eligible depositories for the active, inactive, and interterm depositories of funds of the city of Mentor-on-the-Lake, Ohio, for a 5-year period commencing April 1st, 2022, and declaring it an emergency.
Any questions on the legislation? Or any motion on the legislation?
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend has been made by Mr. Lunder,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Shaboo. Any discussion on suspension? Hearing none, we'll move to roll call. Oh, sorry. Question?
If this does not get passed, are we to bank? Or do
No,
we-
this is just renewing our banking relationships with the two institutions that are listed.
Roll call on the suspension.
Mr. Bednar?
No.
Mr. Lunder?
Aye.
Mrs. Thomas? No. Mrs. Morrison? No. Mr. Shaboo?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
No. Suspension fails. Resolution number 2022-R-12. If you could please read it by its title.
Resolution number 2022-R-12, a resolution designating certain bank institute to be eligible depositories for the active, inactive, and interim depositories of funds for the city of Mentor-on-the-Lake, Ohio, for a 5-year period commencing April 1st, 2022, and declaring it an emergency.
Any questions on this legislation? Hearing none, are there any motions for this legislation? Hearing none, this will go on to second reading. Ordinance number 2022-0-04, third reading amended. If you could please read it by its title.
Ordinance number 2022-0-04, third reading. Opt out of HB 172 and reaffirming the ban on discharging machine for exploding fireworks in the city of Mentor-on-the-Lake as set forth in chapter 672 of the coded ordinance of the city of Mentor-on-the-Lake and declaring it an emergency. Motion for passage.
Seconded.
Motion for passage is made by Mrs. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Morris. Is there any discussion on the motion for passage? Hearing none, we'll move to roll call vote.
Mr. Bittner,
Abstain.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson. Aye. Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morrison,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. The motion is passed. Ordinance number 2022-0-05, second reading, referred to zoning committee. Could read it by its title, please.
Ordinance number 2022-0-05, second reading, refer to zoning committee. An ordinance creating chapter 1255 Lakefront Land United Development PUD District of the Coded Ordinances.
This is still in the zoning committee.
Correct.
All right, it'll remain there for now. Old business, adoption of council rules. Should have received amended version of the council rules. Is there any discussion on that?
I'd like
Yes,
to
sir.
make the motion that we approve the council rules as amended.
Motion's been made to approve the council rules as amended. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Thompson. So Mr. Morris and then Mrs. Thompson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson. Aye. Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. We have adopted the council rules. New business. Is there any new business tonight? Hearing none. We'll move to open to the public to speak. Again, we will open this part to the public. If you would like to speak, please come to the lectern, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Council, Mayor, David Scarnati, 7545 Salida Road. Again, I want to thank zoning for hearing the community meeting. I appreciate that. The reason I came up here was to get a clarification on what exactly a second reading or a third reading means. And if we are deferred back to committee on this particular PUD, does that mean we still continue with the second reading?
We'll let the law director answer that.
The way traditionally that we have done this, when it's put on the agenda, it has been read once at the council meeting. That's the first one. Like the resolution 2022 R12 that's on there doesn't have first reading on it because that means it's the first reading. The second time it's been on the agenda, it puts second reading. This has now been referred to the ordinance to the zoning committee. So we were just talking about this after the agenda. Mr. Jackson wasn't there. And what I indicated at that time, and what the council at that time, is that it is currently in the zoning committee, not to count as a second reading, that it has to be taken back from the zoning committee by a vote of council. And they would then read it for a second time at that time. They would have the ability to pass it, but they would take it by suspending the rules. While suspending the rules, it doesn't have to be read 3 times. But that takes a vote of 5 of the council. If there is not a sufficient number to vote to suspend it, then it would take a while.
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you for listening to the community.
Hello, Bill Curtis, 7523 Salida Road. I have some further questions about this May 9th committee development meeting. I just heard of today. I would like some more information on that as to what time. Is there, what it's about? Is it a formal meeting? I was told all council will be there now. I'd like to learn more about what this is.
So we haven't actually set the meeting yet, other than there's been a request for us to schedule one. As the mayor indicated, that the developer would like to come in and present some information to us and to the community as a whole. So once we set the time and the date, we'll hear that later in this meeting, once we do that.
And it's just it's open to anybody and it's just
All of our meetings are open to the public.
a meet and greet type of thing.
Well, it will be a presentation by them and then questions and answers.
All right, thank you.
Right. Elaborate on that?
You may certainly elaborate better than anybody I know.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope it's true. The mayor had suggested that it be a meeting of the community development. Mr. Johnson said, well, all council's gonna be there. Why don't we do it as a committee of the whole? So council has the right to set a meeting of not the city council where they can pass any legislation, but instead as a committee of their entire membership to allow them to conduct meetings in a little bit less formal manner. It is a notice meeting that is open pursuant to the sunshine law. Minutes will be kept of it. Minutes will be approved. Residents, if the council determines that they want to allow input, it's up to them, but it's my understanding that, from the mayor and Mr. Johnson, that the developer is going to explain not only to council, but to anybody else who comes, what their plan is, so as much information can be put out there as possible. And no formal vote in terms of approval can happen at that particular meeting. But it's for information purposes. The city had the opportunity to just have information, but the sunshine law in the state of Ohio can get tricky in terms of informational meetings, in terms of when you have to keep minutes and whether or not it's an official meeting of the public. And so the mayor and I discussed that, and I thought for sure there would be more than 3 members of council there, so that could be considered to be a meeting. So it's not something conducted by the administration, but the administration in conjunction. I hope that helps a little bit.
Just a quick follow-up, did I just hear that if the council decides to allow question and answers, that
Council, right, committee,
the council will allow?
I did say that, and I said that technically council sets, the committee sets its own rules. What happens. I don't think there's any chance at this particular meeting due to the volume of questions that have happened and the volume of content. But council is the one that makes that. Believe it or not, there's not enshrined to my knowledge in the Ohio Constitution or statute anything that says that people have a right, to speak at a meeting. However, I'm not aware of any council that doesn't. Know what people want.
Hi, my name is Tess Turry. I live at 7373 Salida. And just this has been very helpful with some explanation of some of this verbiage. When you have these resolutions and ordinances and it ends with the and declaring an emergency, is that a common? I've seen it on a lot of them, but I just don't know exactly what that means.
I think all of them do. There's 2 procedural things that happen with legislation. So not only our charter, but also state of Ohio law. State of Ohio law and also our charter. That in order for council to consider any resolution or any ordinance, it has to be read on 3 different occasions. Council votes by at least 5 members of council to suspend the rules. That means that they can go forward and be voted on. Declaring an emergency is something distinctly different, procedural aspect, and all that means is that if it's passed,
emergency language. Usually pretty much, looks pretty much the same in order to protect, welfare in the community. But it's designed to not have it go into effect. Like, for example, the opt-out could have been passed, not an emergency because the law is not going into effect for July 1st. However, council, in its wisdom, wants that to go into effect immediately, so as many people as possible can find out that they're not allowed to blow off fireworks.
My turn to elaborate. It goes
And that
into
has to
effect.
be passed by 5 votes. also.
It goes into effect upon passage of council and signage by the mayor. If the mayor doesn't approve of it, then it would have to be overridden by council. So
Very important.
I don't want to leave the mayor out of that portion of, our legislative process here.
Civics 101.
Scott Wilhelm, 7573 Salida Road. Couple things. First of all, we do appreciate the opportunity to at least hear a full presentation by the Summers Group. We've been able to see some drawings. We had a little bit at the zoning committee where we had the opportunity to at least have some input from them by Zoom. That'd be nice to be able to get a full presentation and hopefully allow for some question and answer time. So we appreciate that. I'm very appreciative of the fact that the fireworks ruling was approved this evening. I think I spoke before that I'm a surgeon, member of the Ohio chapter of the American College of Surgeons. We actually just held our annual meeting for the first time in person here in Cleveland. We were downtown at Crown Plaza. We had a nice attendance by about 60 surgeons from the surrounding areas throughout the state of Ohio. We had good support from the Ohio Commission on Trauma, support many of the statements of the fire chief made this evening for the devastating complications from fireworks. So we're very happy to hear that the city of Menlo Lake is supporting that. We appreciate that, citizens. And then lastly, we had, as was brought up, a very nice lively discussion of the zoning committee. We do appreciate the opportunity to help participate in that. As Mr. Shaboo had mentioned, he specifically requested any comments from our group and organization from the citizens be sent to him. We did have an opportunity for a group of us over the course of the weekend to sit down, look at the existing PUD. We did make some amended changes that we put into a formal document that we will forward on to you, Mr. Shaboo, so that we'll probably get that to you either this evening or tomorrow. It can be forwarded. That will allow time for you and the members of the zoning committee to review it. If there's any other questions that we can help support the citizens on that before the meeting, we'll try to address that as much as possible as everyone's schedules allow. And then certainly have good attendance at that next zoning meeting. So thank you. Appreciate the opportunities again.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice. All right. Announcements and settings of meetings. So we have a ordinance committee scheduled for Thursday, April 28th at 7 p.m. We've been asked to schedule a community development / committee, the whole meeting for May 9th. Did you have a time in mind?
6 or 7 would work, I think.
What works best for council? 7? 7 p.m. on May 9th. Next regular agenda meeting will be Thursday, May 5th at 6 p.m. Next regular meeting of council will be Tuesday, May 10th at 7 p.m. Zoning committee.
Planning and zoning committee
Zoning.
will be May 2nd at 6 p.m.
May 2nd.
Zoning committee will be right after that. May 2nd.
The other meetings. Hearing none. Take a motion for adjournment. Wow, that was a group effort there.
Second it.
Motion made by Mr. Bittner, seconded by Mr. Morris. We'll go with that. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson. Aye. Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Shaboo.
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.